watching NewsX with me, Hina Sharma. At least 165 people have been killed as a sudden massive flash flood hit Nepal on Wednesday, washing away villages and many project sites in a region bordering Tibet. Now, the Nepal army said that 14 helicopters and disaster response teams have been deployed for rescue and relief operations. The flood surged through the Bhotekosi river at around 9 a.m. local time, reportedly coming from the direction of Tibet. Now, the sudden rise in water caused widespread destruction in Timuru, in Rasuva district, in fact, and the nearby areas as well, with vehicles, goods and other property washed away. The Nepal army said in a statement that Nepal's foreign minister, in fact, has said that more than 300 Indians are missing in the floods. The Prime Minister's office has said that Nepal army, armed police forces and Nepal police personnel have been deployed in Rasuva area and the surrounding areas to intensify efforts for relief and rescue operations in view of the devastating floods. Now, in fact, viewers, let's also take a look at some of the devastating videos that are now coming from Nepal. In fact, let me just play this particular video. This is the first video that we would like to show you, where river is completely overflowing all the surrounding residential areas. Remember, this is one of the first visuals that in fact came to the fore yesterday when the news of Nepal flash flood broke out globally. Of course, this was the first visual that took place. This is a complete mayhem that has been caused in this particular case in flash flood. As you can see, a big wall of debris in fact sweeping across the residential area and taking away with it all the houses nearby. In fact, you have the residents also filming the tragedy from nearby. Let me go across to this visual that came to the fore. This is a CCTV time-stamped video that came to the fore. Remember, this is from the transit point, and this clearly shows how this huge flood of debris in fact submerged the entire transit point and the border crossing. This in fact had a lot of pilgrims in fact over there who were carrying out the procedures for immigration. This is the border point between Nepal and Tibet. This is a time-stamped video that in fact was played out yesterday as well, and now the Nepalese authorities also saying that it killed many hundreds of people. Let's also go across to this video where you have floodwaters ravaging through the entire valley. So you have in fact the floodwaters going from the upper riparian areas to the below areas, where you have floodwaters in fact ravaging the entire valley. There are a number of gorges that you can see in this particular video, through which the floodwater is going from upstream to downstream and taking away with it whatever comes in its way. Now, also let us show this particular video where you have again a huge wall of debris flowing with the water along with people's belongings. So you have in fact infrastructure that can be clearly seen. In fact, you have a bridge that can be seen in this particular video where a lot of people are standing. Vehicles are moving as usual, but you have this dramatic video that shows how the entire debris is collapsing the infrastructure that's coming in its way. You have residences over there, infrastructure that includes bridges. Remember, these are the bridges and infrastructure points that we're talking about, which were heavily used by common civilians and a lot of times as pilgrims as well. You have this visual also coming to the fore where you have locals trying to rescue belongings from swaying away in the flood. So, of course, this is another harrowing visual that is now coming to the light, where you have in fact people scurrying to save whatever they can that belongs to the livelihood. Here you have in fact people saving the cylinders that were being floated as the flood is sweeping away whatever comes its way. You have a lot of people also there. And here you have huge muddy avalanche cascading down the mountain gorge. This is another dramatic visual where you have a lot of houses that are located in this particular area on the mountains. As you can see how the flood that was coming from the Tibet side deluged the entire downstream Nepalese northern districts that came its way. This particular video is in fact an aerial footage that has been shot from the helicopter that I'm assuming was deployed in order to carry out the search and rescue operations. Of course, you have the entire gorge clearly visible, how it's inundated with a huge amount of debris that in fact was caused after this GLOF, that is glacial outburst that took place. Here you have this particular visual that we showed you from earlier, and here another visual, an aerial shot which can clearly show the aftermath of the tragedy that took place. Thick flood mud blankets that has now completely surrounded the town streets and buildings. Here you have only and only mud visible, only a couple and handful of homes that were in fact situated on the highlands were saved. Apart from that, everything is completely inundated as if it never existed in the very first place. And another dramatic visual coming to the light, where you have all the vehicles, residential houses, everything being carried away by this huge wall of debris. In fact, you can also see a lot of landslides also taking place after this avalanche that has been caused by the glacial melt. So here you have another shot of the debris that has completely inundated the areas. Remember, this has hit the northern areas of Nepal. You have infrastructure collapsing like a pack of cards. You have vehicles being swept away in this particular debris. Let's also move across to this particular video, which clearly shows how a giant boulder in fact tumbles through the Solan mud river. So you can very well understand the kind of mud torrent that was there in place, which has clearly swept away this big giant boulder as well. You can see how it's toppling, turning in the mud waters. Let's go across to this visual where you have another dramatic footage that clearly collapses the mud water, clearly collapsing the infrastructure. You can see a huge part of this bridge in fact now floating in the mud waters. In fact, this is the bridge that we are talking about, and the mud water carrying it away with it. Of course, a piece of bridge that in fact collapsed is again hitting with another bridge and collapsing that as well. So you can see the kind of mud torrent that was in place when the floods, in fact the flood fury unleashed itself in these northern districts in Nepal. Let's also go across to this particular video where you have flood waters in fact overturning trucks and buses in streets. So I can also see people as well on the rooftops. In fact, this particular flood has taken away everything, whatever people had, the homes, the vehicles, whatever the infrastructure that was there in place. You have everything floating in the mud waters. And now you have this visual that is clearly been shot by someone. Here you have how you can see the water currents are as the water is flowing downstream, as the water is also swelling up completely, inundating all the areas and in fact gushing through a valley at horrific speed. So these are the visuals in fact viewers that came yesterday from Nepal, showing the flash flood fury in the videos that we just